I'll just design my own. How hard can it be, right? I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? Until you suddenly realize you don't know it.
Welcome to Quilting on the Side, the podcast where we uncover the secrets to turning your passion for quilting into a profitable side hustle.
I'm Tori from the Quilt Patch by Tori.
And I'm Andi from True Blue Quilts. And together we're your co-hosts on this exciting journey of creativity, entrepreneurship, and all things quilting.
We're here to help you navigate the world of quilt pattern design, course creation, digital marketing, and running an online quilt business. We've been through the ups and downs ourselves, so we know what it takes to make money from your favorite hobby.
I am very, very excited to welcome Jen Shaffer from Patterns by Jen, who I have followed for a long time because I love her monthly color challenge. And we're excited to have you on the podcast, Jen. So tell us a little bit about how you got started quilting and when you decided to make it a business.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I started quilting when my daughter was just 2 weeks old. We were new in town. I went to a fabric shop. They had a quilting class. And I decided I would, try my hand at quilting. I had done some clothing work. My mom is a quilter and a sewist, and so we were always sewing things. But the quilting part was not my thing yet. But then I had my daughter. I knew nobody in town. And so for the quilting class, you could buy the pattern that they had provided, or you could just design your own and bring that in. And I was like, I'll just design my own. How hard can it be, right? I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? Until you suddenly realize you don't know it. And so I designed this wonderful pattern that I just loved. And the half square triangles, which is something that I will always love, finished at 1 inch. So as a new quilter, you can imagine that was not going to end well. And I had no pattern writing experience at all. So how do I figure out this design? So I did end up buying the pattern from the shop for the class. There was no way I was going to do those 1 inches. But a couple of years later, after I'd gotten my feet wet with quilting and I kind of knew it, I went back to that pattern. And that ended up being the first pattern that I published and sold. And it's Pinwheel Pizzazz. And that was my first design. And then it just kind of grew from there. And that was way back in, I think, like 2003, 2002. So it's been a while that has slowly been growing.
Good. And I know you have another business besides quilting. So tell us how many job titles you actually have besides wife and mother and quilter.
Yeah, right. Wife and mother for sure. That's number one. I am also a family child care provider. So I have children that come into my home Monday through Friday, about 9.5 to 10 hours a day. And anywhere between 9 and 12 kids that come and spend their day with me. And this is my 20th year as a child care provider. So that's my main business, and my quilting is slowly coming to the forefront now.
Wow. So how do you juggle all of that? Is quilting literally nights and weekends, or are you able to carve out some time during the day to manage all of the different pieces that fit together for quilting and for business?
Yeah. Usually the sewing part is evenings and weekends, or any holidays. If we get a 3-day weekend, you can bet I spend 3 days down in my dungeon sewing away. But I can, and sometimes mornings, depending on what the deadline is, I'll get up super early and get the coffee going and start sewing. Nap time, if I get all of them to fall asleep, which if they're usually pretty tired, we spend most of our time outside, so I get them nice and tired. That's going to be the time that I use for the computer work, the paperwork, because we always have paperwork, and really just maybe writing new designs, catching up on emails, doing the Instagram and social media kind of things. That usually happens around the nap time during the day.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about your family and how are they either involved or admiring of all your quilting efforts?
We're now empty nesters. So, and my children have kind of grown up with it. We have 4 children. But they are now 27, 24, 21, and 19. And I hope I got those ages right. And really they're really my quilt holders. So they'll help me when I have to take pictures. If I have to add a long border, I have them come hold it so I can pin correctly and make sure the border is on well. And really that's kind of all they do, other than bringing me food and doing the laundry and the dishes and keeping the household going. If there's those deadlines that are happening, they pop in and they share stories with me, and my son loves to bring his YouTube videos down and we watch some music videos or something, and they'll come and sit, in the chair and just kind of talk with me. But otherwise, their quilting jobs are basically hold the quilt.
Well, that's a very key feature for
it really is. It's very helpful. We're kind of stuck now that they're all leaving the home.
Uh-oh. Yeah, you got to recruit some of those.
I am. Yep. My
Daycare
husband
kids.
is big and tall, but there's only so much wingspan.
Right. So have any of your children picked up the quilting habit?
No, my daughter every now and then wants to, but it's not her thing yet. And maybe someday. I mean, I was 26, I think, before I started. And my oldest son did do some quilting when he was younger, like much, much younger. My mom really got him started in that. So he's got a couple of quilts that he has done, but not so much anymore. He loves to look at them and he loves to talk about the designs, but not really the sewing.
How did you acquire your quilt business knowledge? Like, did you just kind of throw things out there? Were there any mentors or people that were available to help guide you?
Not really. There was a book that I bought, and now I'm going to totally blank on what the name of that was, but it was kind of the go-to book for pattern designers. Because as my children love to point out, I'm older than Google. So, you had to buy books to be able to learn anything. And so there was a book, and then there was like a Yahoo, they used to have the Yahoo group. Maybe they still do. And that's where I found some testers. And then as my internet knowledge grew, I met a few designers online. And then we did the new bloggers. Were you a part of that? There's a new quilt bloggers group that started. And so they had a couple of years of that. So I was able to learn from them. And then the quilt designers Facebook group was started. And that has been huge. Just to not, because I don't always know what I want to ask. And so sometimes you can read through there and you go, oh yeah, I need it. That's what I'm looking for. Or, oh, that was a great idea. I've been doing this for 15 years or whatever. How did I not think of that? So it's been a lot of, also just doing it myself and hoping for the best until I was able to kind of surround myself in that group with fellow designers and get some good ideas and maybe now kind of focus in on it. So I've joined a couple masterclass type things and not even knowing that was a thing until like 2 years ago, so.
It's really been amazing how much the community of quilt business owners and pattern designers has grown up and really become a space of sharing and support. So,
yeah, and it's really great that there are so many that have the, there's room for all of us type attitude. I love that because we are all so different and we all have our own followers, I guess, those who speak our language or we speak their language and how they learn. I think it's just been very cool to have that support and hopefully be able to pass that on.
So Jen, tell us the different components of your business, because you mentioned patterns. Do you do any teaching? What else is involved in your quilt business?
Yep, the designing comes first for me because that's my favorite part. But I have taught classes. It was just starting to take off and then COVID hit. So now I'm trying to get back into building that up again, but I really do enjoy doing the classes. And I usually just do, one of my patterns they pick. So we've done softly circled, and that uses a specialty ruler from, Deb Tucker's 180 design, Studio 180 design. So that's a favorite for classes. And then the, Starlight Starbright, my sampler, I've done that as well. So a couple of them that we have, that we have taught and that the quilters keep asking for. So just my patterns, nothing special. And then I do a trunk show as well. And then I have a few things, couple of companies that I am an affiliate for. And so that is also a part of what I do. And I am now this year an ambassador for Benartech. And so another way to get my name out, but then that also opened up the door to designing some patterns for them. And so either I get paid for the pattern, or it's a pattern I've already designed and they just link to my shop. And then I don't get paid for that one, but I get people coming to my shop. So that is another way that I have added to my revenue.
Mhm.
And then distributors, I have one distributor right now working on trying to get a couple more to pick up.
Do you mind if we ask which distributor you are with?
It's with Brewer Sewing, and it's been a couple of years, so we need to touch base again and update my patterns because I've had a few more patterns. So, but that is, I've contacted quite a few, but they know what they're looking for, and I just keep on sending my stuff, and someday maybe it'll be me.
I'm very curious about this whole distributor contact procedure. Are you meeting sales reps in person to make that initial contact? Are you like sending a cold email to a generic,
Yeah, that's exactly how I started, was just a generic info at whoever, Checkers, Brewer, Moda, whoever. Just asking to be put in contact with the person who is in charge of that decision. It's for wholesale accounts. And my hope is to get to one of these, when life settles down a little, be able to get to Houston or wherever and maybe talk to some of those people person, or face to face. But right now it's just cold turkey. I just write the email, and I do take the time, even if I'm sending, 4 or 5 emails, right, one after another, I do take the time to rewrite each one. I don't do, there might be some copy pasting, but I do try to make it a little bit more personal for that company. And so that I'm not just sounding like, I am copy pasting and because I would be the one who would copy paste and forget to change the company name. So I try to make sure I don't do that, and then try to make it a little bit more personal for that one and make them individual.
Good. Are you doing any the kind of the catalog or the lookbook designs for fabric companies?
For Benartech, I am now. So they've had 2 lookbooks come out, and I had 2 patterns in the one that came out a few months ago, and then now they're oh boy, I think it's their summer line. It might be their fall line came out, and I have 2 in there, 2 patterns in there that I designed for their fabric line, and then one of my own that I recolored, actually softly circled, that I recolored in one of their lines, and so that one is in there as well, recolored to show their fabric with a link right back to my shop.
That's great. And how did you get connected with Benartech? Did they have an open ambassador call, or had you made contact with them another way?
They did have an open ambassador call, but I have been working with Benartech for a few years now. They have sponsored my monthly color challenge for 3 or 4 years now. And then they've also done a couple of my quilt-alongs, as well as when I was doing like giveaways and prizes for the monthly color challenge, they would sponsor some of those as well. So I'd already built up a relationship with them. And so when they did their ambassador call, they did reach out to me and asked if I would be interested. And if I applied, and I was very much so, and applied. Now I will say I had done an ambassadorship with another fabric line years ago, and did it for 1 year, and it was great. And it was, I mean, seriously, the fabric they give you, it's just crazy. But it was a lot of work, that one. And Benartech, this one is a little less, the projects, it's once a quarter, where the other one was once a month. And this just fits my lifestyle better. So, if you're interested in it and you want to get in with the company, I mean, definitely take a look at what they are offering, but also what are their expectations, and then look at what your life can handle. That first company was great. It was a lot to do, and that was a few years ago. So I still had kids at home and my daycare and designing and whatever. And so it was a lot. So I'm grateful for the experience, but this one is a much more my style. It gives me time to do good work as well. That was one of the things, was that I felt like I was not giving my best. So this has been a great experience, and they are fantastic to work with. I mean, if there are designers out there and you need fabric for magazines or they're fantastic to work with. So they want their fabric out there. They want people to see it too. So
I'm curious, did you see any direct return for putting your patterns in the lookbook?
Not yet. As far as the patterns that I have in there, those patterns are free to the shop. The premise is that they'll like that pattern and then they'll kit it. So I figure out the instructions, and then I do the math for the fabric amount, and then they've got this handy little chart, and you just figure out what it is for 1 kit, 12 kits, 24 kits, 36 kits. So then the shop can just go, and so they get that pattern with them. As far as my softly circled one that went into that, that won't start showing up until July 1st. And that's when that will be opened up for everybody, as far as I understand that to be. So I don't know yet. I will say though that those patterns that go to those shops and that are free to those shops, Benartech does pay me for my work. So it isn't, so while the pattern is free, I'm not working for free.
Like, not just monetary, but have you seen a uptick in traffic? There you go.
I have slowly seen my Instagram going up a little bit with each one, but I'm not sure. They're individuals, so I'm not sure if that's shops that are seeing those lookbooks, or if it's because of the projects that I'm doing. We've gone through quarter 1, quarter 2 now, so or the monthly color challenge that they will also take me on. So I do believe it is helping. As far as, I'm not getting hundreds of new orders or hundreds of new followers, but there is
every little bit. Yeah, every little bit helps.
Exactly. So
yeah, that you do the designing and the sewing, and so your sister is on board as helping you with social media. What does your team look like, if there is one?
My team is me and then my sister. She
Good.
Currently, and I don't say just, bless her, because I really struggle with staying on top of all of it. She does my Instagram and my Facebook social media posts. Okay. And then I'll send her my numbers and be like, I don't know, but she says it's going well. So because she has upped it, and she is definitely more consistent than I am. And that's what they say is important. And I just don't have that kind of time. I like to connect. I love to connect with other quilters. And I especially love to connect with those people that, they're trusting me to help them learn. And I want to cheer them on, but there's only so much time in the day. And so if I have to, I was choosing do I cheer on, or do I keep posting more stuff, or do I do this, or do I do that? And I have to blog, and I haven't blogged in a month. So, it just, we started a couple months ago, and it's been a huge help for me. Just that little bit. So
I think that's really good for our listeners to hear. If you can just off plate one task to one person, it can free up so much time.
it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not even time, but like headspace.
Yes,
all these things that all these things on your plate that you have to do as a business owner. One less thing to worry about. Even the headspace is amazing.
I bet. Just tell me when something is due, and I can.
Exactly.
So we've mentioned a couple times that you run a monthly color challenge. So tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes, what it takes to plan and execute a block of the month type program.
Yeah. So I started the monthly color challenge way back in 2018. Seems like a lifetime ago. And that was my first venture into kind of, I guess, a quilt of a month, quilt or a block of the month, quilt-along type program. I don't even do block of the month quilt. So, it was a whole new experience for me. The first year I invited bloggers to also be a part of it, so that I could build those, reach those other quilters that maybe didn't have any idea who I was, and a new audience. So that was kind of my strategy of bringing those new people in and getting introduced to them by these other bloggers. That was the blogging part and running the bloggers, probably the hardest, most time consuming part of running the block of the month for the monthly color challenge, is just making sure everybody had their blogs written up and on time and scheduled on time, and that since the links worked, and that was a lot. That was the most hardest part of running it. As far as designing it, I love design. So, that first year I designed those blocks, I made those instructions. I think the first year we also did a 6-inch size. That might have been year 2. I can't, they're running together, but then I had to learn the photography part of it, which if you go back to 2018, not pretty. And I was like, thought I was being so great because I would put it, out by the window and get the natural light, and it was just it wasn't good. But it was an experience, and it was my first time. So I think there was, a little leeway, forgiveness for my lack of photography talent. Not that it's much better, but it's a little better. I had to have the instructions. I had to figure out how I was going to, because it's free for the first month, I had to figure out how I was going to get it to everybody. And actually that first year, it was free the whole year. I didn't charge until the second year. But I still had to be able to get them like a Google Drive link. See, I don't even know what the correct term is. So that they could get that, get the instructions and be able to make it. And it really was crazy how many people ended up signing up. I remember the first day it opened up, I was like, nobody signed up. And then like 12 hours later, it updated or something, and there were like 5 people. I was like, oh my gosh. So that was really cool. And then also we did prizes those first few years. So I reached out, and again, info at whatever company. And some people were like, no, some people wanted more information. Some people were like, sure, have our backstock. I mean, seriously, there were some companies that were like, are you sure you wanted like all of that? Like 6 things of batting? I mean, it was just crazy how some of them were, and they were all very nice to work with, even when they said no. But again, I took the time to personalize it a little. This one, I copy pasted a few things, like the information about what the color challenge was, but my greeting and that kind of thing, I made sure I was personalized to that company. And that I started probably about July, August. The monthly color challenge starts January 1st. So I started contacting people late summer, early fall, because then I had them ship the prizes to me, and then I took care of shipping it to the winner, thinking that would just make it easier for everybody. And it did, except for me. But everybody else was great. But that was another way for me to, my hope had been that they would do a shout out to me as well, you know, when they were, because with my social media, then I would make sure I would tag the bloggers that were involved that month, those that were sponsoring the prizes. We did prizes once a quarter instead of once a month, and that kind of thing. So, and I think, you know, you show up kind of when you tag. So I think that also brought in some more traffic, as well as the people that, because I made sure, you know, my social media tags were on my blog post, and asked everybody, you know, if you did the block, you know, do the hashtag 2018 monthly color challenge, whatever. So that's the same every year that I ask them to do that. And then just kind of built it up like that. And then at the end of the year, I also give them the A layout that they can use if they choose. The fun thing about that is now we're in year 5, and every layout that I've designed through the years works with the next year. So if you don't like the one that I designed this year, you can go back and pay $1 and get that layout instead. And so just every year I already have next year's. So in 2018, it was just a rainbow. And then after that, I started choosing like birds were my inspiration, flowers, fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing. This year's classic cars. It's kind of cool, kind of fun. So I already have next year's planned. I don't have the blocks drawn out yet, but this year, you know, I changed it up a little bit to make it with a little bit more of a modern twist. Modern for me, I'm more of a traditional, so it doesn't go too crazy. But my friend is like, how do you come up with new ideas? And I'm like, I don't know, I just start drawing, because there's so many shapes and things out there that you can use. And so I start early and work up. Now we've changed it to, I have one blogger per month, to kind of ease up on my end. We don't do prizes anymore or giveaways. It was just between the time and the shipping. It ended up being something that I was like, you know, it's not bringing me joy. At the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I love sending all this stuff out. And by the last year, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much work. And I still love sending it out, but I had to decide, you know, it got to the point where I was like, am I going to stop doing the color challenge because I'm feeling so much weight on my shoulders to get all of this done? And I did not want to do that. I love the color challenge. So I've cut way back. We don't do the gifts and the giveaways. And I'm down to one blogger a month, which just makes it so much easier to keep everybody on schedule. And, but it keeps growing. You know, we're over, and I now do an email where I send out the email at the beginning of the month, and they can get that block for free if they sign up for it. So we have over 2,000 people that do that. And then there's, you know, a couple hundred that download it from the blog. So it just keeps growing. It's pretty cool.
I love that you simplified it and it keeps growing.
Yeah.
I love that. I just want to emphasize that she simplified and it keeps growing. That's great.
And I fell for that whole thing of you got to do it all to bring them. But no, you really, really don't. As long as I think, then you don't even have to know what you're doing. I mean, 2018, I had no clue what I was doing. I think the biggest thing is that as long as you're honest about what you know and what you don't know, and that you are there and encouraging, I think that's a huge thing. People just want to connect, you know. So
and play with color. Who doesn't like playing with color?
Who doesn't love that?
Yeah. Well, I just have to say that I've probably done most of these monthly color challenges
as a blogger, yes.
Because the fun part for me, even before I came on board as one of your official bloggers for a couple years, was that it was content for me. You know, we all are kind of trying to feed that social media beast. And what am I going to post? What am I going to write about on my blog? Well, I knew that if I signed up for the monthly color challenge, I had at least one topic every single month.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I think that was my goal too, was to help bloggers as well grow their audience. It wasn't just my audience, it was to get us all connected. And the bloggers, I mean, it's a lot of work. So they were given, I had them sign up for 2 months, 2 or 3 months back when we first started. But they got the instructions for every single block and the layout. So they had the whole quilt, even if they only had, signed up for 1 or 2, just kind of as a thank you for, oh my gosh, putting in your time and taking the pictures and writing the blog posts. And I mean, it's a lot of work. So it was just one of the ways I kind of tried to say thanks and then made sure I was just tagging them wherever I could. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm excited that you're going to continue on into 2024. So we can't
I'm
wait.
excited to introduce it. It's so hard when I get it set up and I get all the buttons and all the social media things made, because I'm like, I just want to share with people.
Yeah, I do. I love your themes. So well done.
Thank you.
We've talked a lot about the supportive quilt community and collaborations and that kind of stuff. Jen, if you could pick one person to collaborate on a quilt project with, who would it be?
Oh my. One?
Or as many as come to mind. I mean, let's not say the entire world, but
well, I mean, there's so many good quilters. That's a tough one. I would have to say, and I've never met her in person. And actually we were in the same building in Minnesota for the quilt show and didn't meet because the timing, I mean, like, we're in the same, not just the same state, we're in the same building and we never met, but probably Krista Watson. I love, and we're totally different. She's like modern and she quilts on her domestic, and I am a long mid armor, not long armor, but I love her personality. I love the joy she has in her work and in her designing and for her love of teaching. And I did actually, when her first fabric line came out, I was someone who was lucky enough to get some of that fabric and do a blog pop to show off that fabric. So I already know she's easy to work with. But yeah, I would probably have to say Krista Watson. And I know there's a lot of big names out there, but I just really like, and she is also in, our fabric designer group, or our pattern designer group. So you kind of get to know what her thoughts are on things. So,
Krista Watson, if you're listening, hit up Jen for some collaboration.
So I'm here. I'm still in Minnesota for a little while.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good choice. Krista seems like a wonderful person and quilter. So I think that would be a fun collaboration. You're packing for a quilt retreat. Okay. 2 parts. How many projects are you going to take, and what snacks are you bringing along?
The answer to both of those is too many. Probably, let's see, when I've gone on quilt retreats, I probably bring 3 or 4. And I usually don't even finish one, but usually 3 or 4. And my snacks are going to be sweet and salty. So I'll have pretzels and peanuts, and I'll have gummy bears. I know they're horrible, but gummy bears and like Starburst, and then gum, probably. But yeah, I have to do sweet and salty.
All right. So what is your favorite color?
Purple.
Nice. What, do you have any other hobbies besides quilting?
No.
No time.
There's no time. I want to learn how to crochet, and I want to learn how to knit, and I've been saying that for literally 10 years. So no, and I can't grow flowers.
Our next one is yardage or pre-cuts?
Yardage. Yep. I do design some like this behind me, pinwheel pivot. Use its fat quarters if you want, and I know they're a thing, but I want yardage.
Yeah. And what is your favorite notion?
Oh, my purple thing. I have it all the time. I know. And I only bought it because it was purple, because it's literally my favorite color. But oh my gosh, I use that thing to get the thread out of my, I use it all the time. I'm not saying the seam ripper.
So for those who don't know what that tool is, can you describe it real quick?
All right, let's see if I can find it. All right, so this is the purple thing. It's a stylus. So it's got the little edge here and the flat end here. And really, it's on my machine all of the time because I use the little thing here to grab that thread out. My machine has the automatic cutter.
Mhm.
So the thread is always kind of tucked under there, and then you get the knots and all the wadded up thread. And so this flips it out so I can hold it. And now I don't have those knots, and I kind of am a perfectionist. And so not having those really makes me happy. So the purple thing is my best friend.
Yep. And it's a great tool for beginners because that flat end is a 1/4 inch. And so you can quickly check to make sure you're hitting that 1/4 inch seam. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. And it's purple.
Mhm.
So, what's not to love?
Okay, last question we've got for you is, who is inspiring you right now?
So who is inspiring me right now? I would have to say is we met, so the Minnesota Quilt Show just happened 2 weeks ago, last week, very
Mid-June.
recently. And they did a thing this year where they opened up a section for Minnesota designers only, where they could put in patterns so that they could kind of be introduced to the quilting world as well as vendors and shops and that kind of thing. So there were, how many? There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 pattern designers from Minnesota that stuck their necks out, set up their stuff. And went into this thing not knowing, I think there was one who had experience with it, maybe two. Otherwise, it was a brand new thing for them. And they brought their patterns and they hung up their quilts, and they didn't have to spend every day there, but they would show up at their booth and talk to business owners and vendors and put themselves out there. And I just think that is just so amazing to be able to do. I think you have to do that as a designer, and as a new designer, you have to be able to, find that voice and just get out there and do it. But it is so dang hard. And for those of us who really struggle with small talk, I'm horrible. And I start talking about the weather, and then inside I'm going, oh my gosh, Jen, just shush up. But it's so important to do that. And so they just, it sounds like it went really well, and they had guild members come and talk to them for trunk shows and that kind of thing. And then I only know because I went and was talking with one of them, and and they talked about how helping each other out, and then asked questions about pricing even for trunk shows and classes and that kind of thing. And it was really just an amazing thing to see them step up and do that. And just, kind of makes me try to kick myself and go forward with that next step. I have some ideas that I want to be doing, and I'm just kind of back here going, I'm too busy. I have a lot of stuff that, you have to do that. And so that just really was pretty cool to see and see that kind of work itself out, because it was a brand new thing. Nobody really knew how that was going to work. So, but they stepped up and they did it. It was very cool.
Yeah,
I feel inspired through that story.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I want to tell all the guilds I know that are doing shows, make sure you feature local.
And they learned stuff too from it. It was a whole new venture for the Minnesota Quilters Guild as well. So hopefully they got some good information from them, and they can continue to do that.
And it's hard to find those spaces where you can talk about pricing and you can talk about what you're doing in the business realm. And that's one of the reasons why we created the podcast, because we wanted to talk shop. We wanted to find out what other people were doing.
Well, we've had a wonderful discussion this evening with Jen from Patterns by Jen. So I just gave your business name, Jen, but tell people where they can find you. What platforms are you active on?
I have a blog and it's just patternsbyjen.com. And then I'm on Etsy right now. And again, just Patterns by Jen. You'll find that on Instagram, Facebook. I also have a group on Facebook, and it is Quilt and Learn with Patterns by Jen. Otherwise, everything else across the board is Patterns by Jen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, that was a fabulous discussion we just had with Jen from Patterns by Jen, and hearing about her monthly color challenge was so much fun. What was your biggest takeaway, Tori?
I loved how she kept coming back to simplifying, and it's still bringing her success. Like, it even got better when she simplified. Like when she was talking about having the block of the month for the first time, she had a bunch of sponsors, and then she cut that out and she still was doing great and it was still growing. And even then she simplified with the bloggers, and it still is going strong 4 years later and just keeping it simple. I really liked that. Was probably my biggest takeaway.
So encouraging for those of us that are trying to do this part-time, that yes, you can have success without going wild and crazy and doing all the pieces and things that the add-on kind of stuff.
Definitely. What was yours? Your biggest
I
takeaway?
was really encouraged by her design process and the fact that she can just tell herself that this is the time I have set aside and I need to get a design down on paper and just kind of take a spark and, oh, let me try this block idea. And it just kind of comes together smoothly, that idea that once you exercise those design muscles, that they're available and you can put them to use when you need to pull them out of your back pocket and get something done.
For sure. I know that not a lot of people can do that. Interesting to hear how that happens for her.
Yeah, really fun. So we want to thank all of our listeners, and if you could please take a minute to leave a review and subscribe wherever you found this podcast, whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. We really appreciate all of our listeners.
And we have new merch.
Yay! Tell us about
we do.
merchandise.
So we have shirts that have our logo on it. And then we've got a brand new shirt in there with the logo on the front and a smaller size. And then on the back, it says
introverted but willing to discuss quilts. That looks great. So much fun. So you can find all of that at quiltingontheside.com.